Hello, welcome back. Good morning. Happy New Year. We are very, very happy to start again now in 2021 our series of talks promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation, and of course, with the collaboration of so many people and all of you that have been following us throughout the last year. So this year we have a very exciting program for us. We will be having our guest speakers. We will be having group talks and so many other things, so many other surprises for you. So stay tuned. And every Saturday at 11, we are here. Today, we are happy to invite GLAUCIO PESSOA to be with us. GLAUCIO? Hello, GLAUCIO. How are you doing today?
Happy New Year to all of our friends, wherever you are. It's great for us to be in the beginning of a new year, 2021. Can you imagine?
So as always, we are going to be giving a talk, doing first our opening prayer. And after that, I'm going to introduce GLAUCIO, and he will start his talk. So we invite you all to join your thoughts, your hearts, so that we can say a prayer of gratitude for our Heavenly Creator, for having been able to become part of a new year, to continue spreading this knowledge, this understanding that can broaden our perspective in relation to our own lives and our mission on this planet. We pray that we may always feel the guidance and protection of the benefactors in all our endeavors, so that we can fulfill the commitments we have agreed to perform during this lifetime. We pray for our homes, our loved ones, and at this moment for our guest speaker, GLAUCIO, so that he can be inspired and that we can learn through his words, through his presentation, and become each time more encouraged and motivated to continue in this path of redemption. So be it. Okay, so GLAUCIO PESSOA. Well, I'm going to start with the most important part. He's such a dear friend. We have been working together for quite so long here in the United States Spiritist Federation, and it's always a joy to be able to work with GLAUCIO and to do everything we have to do in terms of the work for the development and dissemination of Spiritism here in the U.S. And he has been active in the Spiritist movement for over 37 years. He currently serves as Vice President of the Christian Spiritist Community of Atlanta. He has a special interest in the Spiritist activities revolving around media, English translation, and music. And GLAUCIO holds a master's degree in both business administration and electrical engineering, and currently works in data protection and compliance. GLAUCIO has been a board member of the United States Spiritist Federation for many years, and he continues in this work of support to the United States Spiritist Federation. So GLAUCIO, thank you so much. Be welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I mean, always good to provide, to participate, and to be part of the dissemination of Spiritism in the U.S. I mean, it's a pleasure for me. And without further ado, let's talk a little bit about today's topic. This is a very interesting passage, and it is narrated by Mark, and that's the one we're going to be talking about today, but also narrated by Matthew and Luke. So it's the Blind Man of Jericho. I'm going to read the passage to you all, and the story is very simple. If you take it by face value, there's nothing apparently extraordinary. However, the story, the details of the story make it very meaningful and very significant and very impactful. Actually, this is my favorite story is the one of the Good Samaritan. And my second favorite one is this one. So I'm going to read it to you all. So I'm going to read the version as narrated by Mark in chapter 10, verses 46 through 52. So Jesus and his followers came into Jericho. As Jesus was leaving Jericho together with his disciples and a sizable crowd, a blind beggar named Bartimaeus, Timaeus' son, was sitting beside the road. When he heard that Jesus of Nazareth was there, he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, show me mercy." Many scolded him, telling him to be quiet, but he shouted even louder, "Son of David, show me mercy." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him forward." They called the blind man. "Be encouraged, get up, he's calling you." Throwing his coat to the side, he jumped up and came to Jesus. Jesus asked him, "What do you want me to do for you?" The blind man said, "Teacher, I want to see." Jesus said, "Go, your faith has healed you." And once he was able to see, he began to follow Jesus on the way. So it's very simple, very straightforward parable, but we're going to dissect it and go in each little verse, and we're going to see that there are many details. Before we go into that, I'd like to discuss a little bit of a concept here, and if my friends allow me, all my friends who are listening, allow me to diverge a little bit into literature that is not Spiritist. There's a very interesting book which is called the Consulting Bible. And it's written by a famous consultant. His name is Alan Weiss. And he describes what factors allow people do the right thing. So we see a lot of times people who are faced with ethical dilemma. And we see that people sometimes take the right actions. They do what's right. Sometimes they don't do what's right. And sometimes people just don't do anything. Right? And he is very interesting. In his concept, he breaks it down into values, skills, and awareness. Values, skills, and awareness. So basically, values means, again, what is it that I have here? I mean, what is it that makes up the way I see the world? And also what helps me discern between right and wrong. So pretty much is the ability to decide what's the right path to do and to identify what's good and what's not good. And skills, just like the name implies, again, it's my skills, my abilities. Different people, they have different abilities, they have different ways in which they can impact the world around them. So those are individual skills, and different people, all of us, during our evolutionary path as immortal souls, we've had different experiences. And in these different experiences, we gain different skills, different abilities, and those we carry on. So we are all endowed with these different skills. And the third factor is called awareness. So it's pretty much for me to be able to identify, be aware of the surroundings, be aware of my environment. also be aware of any situation that is wrong, of anything, or any wrongdoing, or any challenges around me, and also identify opportunities. So it's very interesting that going back to the situation in which people would do what's right, but they don't, a lot of times people would act. You know, some people, they have the will to do something, but they don't, they can't, because they are lacking the skills to do something, to do what's right, or to take the right, to do the right action. A lot of times here, and this has little quadrant here, little triangles. So here, number 2, that means that somebody would act, right? Somebody has the skills to act, to do what's right. Some people might have the awareness to know that it is a time to act, but they don't do anything. They don't do what's right because they're missing the values, right? We see a lot of that situation. Sometimes in people in position of power, they have the awareness, they know that there are some issues that they need to address, but and they have the skills, they have the condition to do what's right, but they don't, because they're missing the value. There's this moral background that they are missing. And finally, we see here in this little triangle here, we see people who could act, but they don't. And they have the values, they know what's wrong or what's right, that they have that in their hearts. They have the ability, the skills, but they don't do what's right just because they are oblivious of different situations. And of course, here we have where we have the intersection, we have here number 4, and that means that people who will act. So means that those people, they have the values, they have the skills, and they have the awareness. So we see that in a very high spirit like Jesus, the way he was always acting, he was always expressing himself. And that's why in the gospel he says that he says what he explains. You know, he tells people what he thinks, because he does not see the title in people. He sees who people are, right? So those are the different situations. So I'm going to go, you know, with this different, there's like a little preamble here for us to, before we delve into the different aspects of the parable. But just for us to know, I mean, spoiler alert, of course, you know, there's a reason why I'm talking about those factors, because the blind man of Jericho, he shows those factors in different levels. At any rate, so let's talk about the first verse here. And the first verse is verse 46. And again, Jesus and his followers came into Jericho. Jesus was leaving, so they came to Jericho, and then Jesus was leaving Jericho together with his disciples and a sizable crowd. So there's, of course, the 12, and then there was all the people who were following. And then there was this blind beggar, his name is Bartimaeus, his son, and he was sitting beside the road. So just think about the little details, right? So first of all, Jesus is leaving Jericho. And that by itself is a very important detail. So Jesus is leaving Jericho. The blind man is sitting on the road that, you know, leads to Jericho. So Jericho is known as a place of fragrance. That's what it means in Hebrew, because it was a very famous town. It is referred in the gospel, of course, in this passage, and it's very important. And it is in the beliefs, in the values, going back to values, in the values of the time, and in the significance. It illustrated the material, the possessions. It was a very rich town. They have a very flourishing commerce of balms, balms to apply on people, and fragrances. So it was a thriving city. And there's always this dichotomy of comparing Jericho as the opposite of Jerusalem. And I have here a very interesting map, and that shows where they are located. So it is, nowadays, it is a city. It's a Palestinian city. Jericho is a Palestinian city. It's on the famous West Bank. And we always have this dichotomy, right? Again, this is Jesus Jesus was a great communicator. And as all great communicators, he used concepts, words that were impactful with the folks of his time with his audience, right? The famous know your audience, and Jesus, being Jesus, he knew his audience. Needless to say that. And so he used he always used this dichotomy. He always used this comparison. And again, here's Jericho. Jericho is just to the east. We have the Jordan River, and to the west, more like northwest, we have here Jerusalem. The distance between the cities, and there's the famous road, right, that connects both cities. The distance is about 8
moment in life with COVID. It's unique, it's strange, I would say sometimes very terrifying. We never seen in our generation, in my generation, this amount of suffering that is covering the entire world. We can choose to open the newspaper and go line to line, all the articles that talk about all the horrifying situations that people are facing everywhere. We can also consult the economics and politics side of the newspaper. Now with, electronic newspaper, we don't even need to, dirty our hands with paper. We basically get the feed in our cellular phones, and we can get from CNN, New York Times, and, God knows what else all the day. And then we keep reading the same article that carries a negative energy over and over again. Why would we do this? Why do we choose to invite to our homes, to our lives, to our days, to our hours content that is negative, that is going to push us down? And I'm not saying that we should disregard the situation that we are living in. No, it's not that. What I'm saying is that we don't need to read the same information 25 times, just written different by 20 different journalists. We can consciously see that life can go beyond that there is a God above us that has the control of everything. He is in the driver's seat. He is all love. He's all justice. He cares about us. He's perfect. And he's on command and control of all the situation that surrounds our globe. As any other content that, like what we eat, like if we carefully choose the foods, the type of exercise, the lifestyle to have a healthy life, a physical body that is healthy, we can do the same thing with our minds. Because everything starts in our mind. When we read the Genesis, Allan Kardec combines thought and will. While thought is the unique element that shapes everything that is created. So thought is energy. And we will see just in a little bit ahead some of the characteristics of our thoughts. So thought is a force that can establish, transform, edify, destroy, reconstruct anything. If Kardec is telling us thought and will are for the spirit, what the hand is for the man, that means that our thoughts remain alive when we are spirits, when we disincarnate after the death of our body. Now imagine, we learn from André Luiz that we don't change. Who we are, our beliefs, our values, our fears, all the goods, the rights, the wrongs that we have done, They go with us in the biggest transition, the transition between the physical world and the eternal world, the spiritual realm. If the thoughts continue to be with me, that means that if I am feeling anger, I'm gonna carry that anger with me. If my thoughts are benevolent thoughts, these thoughts will go with me as well. But with the difference that when I am in the spirit realm, I can create things much more easily than when I am incarnated. So it's like having the best tool set in the whole universe. Because with our thoughts, we can build and destroy anything we want. And many times we take for granted the importance of our thoughts, our mind, and we let be carried away with things that are unimportant. We spend hours reading irrelevant content, gossiping, browsing in social media, playing games that are violent, maybe having the negative self-talk. Well, Allan Kardec, 150 years ago, with the help of the superior spirits that work with Jesus, call to our attention the impact that our thoughts in our lives, that how our thoughts can change our lives. For those who are familiar with the Spirit's book, there's a whole chapter that just talks about the influence of the spirits, the importance of our thoughts in that book. Valuable questions that call to our attention how our will can preserve, how our will can help navigate through any storms, through any situations, just based on our thoughts. André Luiz, in the collection Life in the Spiritual Realm, also gives us real examples of how our thoughts can change our lives for better and worse. And I have to say that there are so many books like, Nosso Lar, Action and Reaction, Life Continues, that we see that our thought can make the world of a difference in our day-to-day lives. Depending on the book that you're reading from André Luiz, you see the impact of the thoughts in the spiritual realm, creating images, creating sceneries, some very shadow, heavy, negative sceneries like in the underworld, and some of them creating beauty, creating music, creating art. The same thing when he's looking at us. He describes how our thoughts not only can create a mist of light or a mist of darkness surrounding us, and that's what is called by some people like an aura. But it also attracts and repels other spirits, because he explains that our thoughts are like magnetic energy, that by affinity we will align with spirits that are in the similar line of thoughts as us. So why did I put this tool set in this picture? Because with COVID-19, God has sent all the humankind to a break, to sit down and think. What everyone thought that would be impossible, to have the world stop for a few weeks. Now, for 9 months, it's happening. This invisible virus has been more powerful than any other weapon of massive destruction that we have ever seen, but with no violence. So in just a matter of weeks, since we heard about the virus for the first day, God found a way to send us back home, to stay put, to think. Now, if our thoughts are so powerful, as we have learned from André Luiz, as well as Allan Kardec, what are we doing with it? So why did I decide about this topic? Because with the pandemic, our thoughts is more important than ever. Ever. We have had to change the way we live, the way we work, the way we play, the way we relate with others, with our families, with our friends. We have had to reshape our priorities, our likes and dislikes. We have been sent back to the basics. Yes, 2020 has been a very strange year. In my case, in my house, it has forced me to reframe our daily routine. My kids now work from home. They know Zoom probably better than I ever thought they would. My husband, a husband of 20 years, that I have never spent one single month together because he used to travel a lot and I used to travel a lot. Now we have been together for 9 months non-stop. This has never happened in 20 years. COVID has also taken me out of my comfort zone. I had to completely readapt to a new style of life. Now I have a husband that has breakfast and lunch with me, which I never had. I see my kids at school. I see their pains, their difficulties every single day. When they are learning, when they cannot play with their friends, when they cannot go outside. My day-to-day priorities have changed as well. If in one hand, I am blessed to be able to spend more time at my home, because being home means being safe, but also protecting others from this fierce virus. It also increased the demand of my responsibilities at home. I have to say, it has been a very intense exercise of patience, acceptance, and resilience. And COVID doesn't come alone. Probably for many of you, you have also experienced other types of challenges. Maybe a loss of a job, maybe an illness, because life continues. But we, all of us, all the humankind, had to look at our own lives and meet ourselves again. We had to look at the mirror and see if we liked who we were looking at, who our family is. We had to stop to compare and contrast our priorities with how we spend our time. I think it was a brilliant way that God found to send all of us to this kind of a very little small corner of the room to sit and think. Think about our choices, our values, the relationships we have built, our jobs, but most of all, above all, our families. Why? Because our families are the most important asset that we have in this life. And everything is correlated by the way that we think. We continue to have the freedom to think as we had before the pandemic. We cannot go to parks, to movies, to malls. We choose not to fly to go to vacation in Brazil, but we can do that with our thoughts. And André Luiz explains that our thoughts are matter, real matter. Maybe not the type of matter that we know from the periodic table that we learn in chemistry when we were in middle school. It's a different type of matter. It's more subtle. It has components that we, as human beings, we are not aware of them yet. But as matter, they have color, they have weight, they have smell, they have frequency, and they have gravity force. So that means that not only I can craft images, forms, frames with my thoughts, these thoughts also, with their magnetized power, can attract and repel other thoughts, other spirits, other circumstances to my life. A lot of the religions, mostly the Eastern ones, they talk about our aura in a similar way that the Spiritism talks. Why? Because our thoughts, by having this gravity force, creates a circular field around us. And the circular field, of course, will have color, will have some type of density, will have smell. This is the circular field that some of us that are more sensitive feel when we meet other people, that we go like, ooh, I don't like to be around that person giving me the creeps. Or, oh my goodness, when I am around that person, I feel so much peace. That is the power of our thoughts. Can you imagine being around Jesus? The level of peace, harmony, love that people could feel. In the New Testament, we learn that people would be cured just by walking by St. Peter's shadow. And then I ask myself, what people feel when they are around me? How my kids feel when they are around me, my husband, my friends. What type of feeling, emotions do I carry with me? So do I think this is a coincidence? 2020. When we go to our eye doctors, 2020 is the term that they use to show perfect vision. And this is the year that we are invited to see with clear eyes. The pandemic has opened a door so we can see that the world is much smaller than we thought. That, as the U2 band used to sing, we are one. We've noticed back in March that this invisible virus in a small village in China was able to end all toilet paper across the US. Who would think that? If you still go to supermarket, you cannot find Lysol. This little guy was able to make everyone stay home, restaurants get closed, factories are shut down across the globe. Why? Because we are all connected. This is the message. We are all connected. We need to see that. And we are connected through our thoughts. Why? Because everything starts with our thoughts. This pandemic has shown that our actions can impact the lives of hundreds of people. Just a week ago, I think in Australia, a man lied about working or not working in a restaurant, and suddenly an entire state was shut down because he had COVID and he lied. Well, we are all spirits. So that means that I'm not Anna with, dark hair and brown eyes. No, I am an eternal spirit living for a few decades in a city called Portland in Oregon. But this will end soon. Our lives on earth, for all of us, will end soon. It may take 10 years, maybe 50, maybe 90 years, I don't know. Depends on how old you are and how good science is. But it's important for us to remember that we are not our bodies. That even the identity that we have here on earth in this life, this is temporary. We are much more than that. And that brings another question, which is, how do I spend my time? We get carried away with our day-to-day routine, our responsibilities at our jobs, and we forget that we are all here to learn something. That's why we incarnate. This is like a school, that there are some lessons that we need to learn. The lessons may vary for each one of us, but in essence, we are here to learn. And then one day, someday, everything that we believed that we had, we own, even our bodies, our family, our wealth, will remain here. And our souls will go back to the spiritual realm. So my question is, are my actions aligned with these priorities, with this reality? How I am balancing my goals as a eternal spirit with the way that I spend my days in this life? Going back to Emmanuel, he explains that thought is a creative force to be externalized of the creature that generates it. That means that our thoughts travel space, just like energy, and we can create as we wish. Actually, André Luiz says that our thoughts travel faster than the speed of light. And that's actually the way that all the spirits communicate. Sorry, I needed a sip of water. Therefore, if the thought is just like energy, it's traveling faster than the speed of light, it's matter, we keep emitting these thoughts like rays and assimilating them 24/7. The same way happens with the thoughts that we receive from God, that we are surrounded everywhere. In the Old Testament, they talk about the breath of God. And if God is love, so this breath is love. And this breath of love is everywhere. It's in the air. It's in me. It's inside and it's outside. Now, if we limit what we see, what we receive with our thoughts, that also means that I am limiting by the type of thoughts that I have, the amount of love that I am receiving. This love that is supreme, this love that comes from God, that He gives the same way to the worm, to the virus, to the man, to the elephant in Africa, is the same love. But somehow I may choose to stay in a state of ignorance, in a state of valuing things that are perishable. But why? Why do we prefer to think more negatively than positively? Why do we choose to focus on what we lack instead of the blessings that we have? The celestial benevolence shines around us all the time. It brings darkness to light. It can bring our sadness to happiness as well. But we need to change the way we think. In a book called Sinal Verde, that's green light in English, André Luiz says that we are unaware that we all breathe in an ocean of mental waves, with the obligation to adjust them for our own benefit. I will repeat. We all breathe in an ocean of mental waves, with the obligation to adjust them for our own benefit. This is a vast sea of exchange vibrations. We emit forces and receive them. Thought prevails on the basis of this inevitable exchange system. And when I read that, I pictured myself in one of those pretty crazy markets in the Middle Eastern countries. Thinking that I am surrounded by all these vibrations, good and bad, that I can pick and choose the color, the shape, the smell, the size, the weight, as I wish. I can protect myself from any malicious waves and thoughts. Yes, I can. How? Just by raising the frequency of my thoughts to higher thoughts. So hold. So are you saying, Anna, that even though I am in this midst of craziness, that everybody may be thinking all horrible stuff, I can still be in peace? Yes, that's what I'm saying. And that's probably what we need to do now to continue to carry on our sanity, our mental health. Probably much more important than our physical health right now. The way that we face our challenges can vary a lot. If we change the perspective and look at our true life as eternal spirits, we will see that all the trials that we go through, they're very short in life. We will see that God is our creator, then He's all love, justice, and perfection. That our loving Father would never, ever make us go through experiences that we cannot handle, or experiences just for the sake of making us suffer. These experiences are here. These challenges that we face are here for a reason, for us to learn something. We know that planet Earth is a planet of atonements and trials. The challenges we experience today are a consequence of our past choices, meaning choices in this life, meaning choices in a previous life. We also know that we are going through a transitioning period, to a regeneration planet where the good prevails. So if I believe on the law of cause and effect, a laws that every single action that I have will have a consequence, that will mean that my decisions here on earth, as well in the spiritual realm, will trigger a consequence. Our challenges, the challenges that we face now, are not larger than we can take. They're just a reflection of previous actions that we had. And God, being a loving Father, He will never leave us alone, ever. He will never make us carry a load that is heavier than we can handle. Our experience, our life is a blessing, and we learn over and over again that life is the biggest blessing that we have, the biggest treasure in our hands. Our family members, according to Emmanuel, are the people that we owe a higher dose of love. The ones that are closer are the ones that we need to practice patience, forgiveness, tolerance, and charity. Our relatives, our parents, are people that we need to mend with. These are the closest neighbors that Jesus talked about. These are the ones that we need to love the most. And I know it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to look where we are, to feel lost. It's hard to look at scars from the past that have not healed yet and let go. But then Emmanuel gives us another hint, and the hint is called will. He says that will is the determining impact in our lives. So will somehow is this powerful juice that can change our state from inertia to movement. So I can choose to sit and be sad and feel like a victim, carry our sorrows, anger, or I can use my will to change. We already said that, André Luiz mentions that our brains are like a dynamo that produces mental energy. And according to our own capacity, it reflects what other people are saying too. However, the will, with our will, we have the control that directs this or that into the direction that we want, establishing causes that command problems of our destiny. So what André Luiz is telling us is that with our thoughts, we can change our perception of life. And with that, we can change our life. That only the will is strong enough to sustain the harmony of the spirit by controlling our thoughts. So if I am having a negative thought, I can use my will to change it, to replace it. Because if I do not control my thoughts, it will be very hard to control my emotions and my feelings. When I refrain my thoughts, I create a different vibrational atmosphere around me, a new reality, as we saw. Because thought is matter. It has a shape, it has a color, it has a smell, it has a gravity force. It surrounds us. What we are living today, the phenomena of mental suggestion, is pretty impactful. We are heirs of our previous experiences. We carry patterns, biases. Nevertheless, we have the ability to change the direction of our life. By activating the lever of the will, we will be able to trace new paths to liberate our spirit and be free. With free will, we can command over our thoughts. And by improving our thinking, we will improve our lives, physically and spiritually. So what we are trying to say here is that happiness depends on the quality of our thoughts. There is the law of affinity, where we know that positive thoughts and a positive attitude basically surround ourselves with alike spiritual beings, so positive beings, superior beings. But with our thoughts, we create the atmosphere we breathe, we live. In the Spirit's book, Kardec says that for the spirit and the spiritual realm, it's enough for the spirit to think a thing for such a thing to take place. So, knowing that, we can see that we can be moved by all these cosmic energies, etheric fluids, which, although invisible to our eyes, are present where our physical forces will never reach. If we are all connected, if we are all one, there's no boundary to our planet. As we said, the breath of God, the breath of love is everywhere, filling up the universe. We just need to take it in. But in our day-to-day, sometimes we forget. We don't realize that we continue to create images in our minds. And these images will continue to exist as long as we feed them.